The hall was drowning in golden light, the kind of champagne glow only award nights could conjure. Cameras flashed like 1,000 tiny suns as Cynthia glided across the stage in a white silk gown that clung to her every movement, her perfect smile sharpened like a blade. Her hands trembled just enough to seem humble as she clutched the trophy, but her eyes gleamed with a confidence that only someone who believed she'd finally escaped her past could carry. The MC's voice boomed, rattling off her achievements, the crowd erupting in applause as though every clap was an oath of loyalty. Aiden stood at the far edge of the stage behind a bank of black curtains, half hidden by the muted charcoal shadows. He was dressed as always in a dark tailored suit, his expression unreadable to everyone except himself. The roar of applause felt like static against his skin. 3 years of building her, 3 years of shaping her image, guiding her craft, paying for her mistakes, all erased with one breathless evening and a flawless smile. From his vantage point, he could see everything, the polished chrome of the microphones, the shimmer of the cameras, the way the spotlight carved her out from the crowd like a goddess descending from a silver sky. She was beautiful, yes, beautiful in the way a polished weapon is beautiful before it strikes. Cynthia adjusted the microphone delicately, her voice slid across the room like velvet dipped in ice. "I'm deeply honored to stand here tonight," she said, "and I want to thank someone who has been indispensable in my growth." Her pause was perfectly timed, the audience leaned forward, Aiden's heart thudded once, quietly. He had not expected her to thank him publicly, but there was still a part of him, small, hidden, that wondered if she would. She continued, "Elijah." The room broke into thunderous applause again, cameras swinging to capture her as she turned toward the front row where Elijah, immaculate in a midnight blue suit, lifted his hand with a modest smile. Aiden's own smile froze. He could feel the echo of his own efforts being wrenched away, gifted to another man without hesitation. His fingers curled into a fist inside his pocket. Then the question came from a journalist near the stage. "Miss Cynthia, it's said you've always relied on Director Aiden. Is there truth to the rumors about your close relationship?" The way she tilted her head was a masterstroke, innocence painted on porcelain. "Director Aiden. I'm not very familiar with him outside of work, so please don't associate unrelated people with me, thank you." The sentence hit him like a silent slap, no sound but a ringing inside his skull. Around him, stagehands whispered. Someone's phone vibrated, but Aiden only stood there, his face as composed as marble, eyes fixed on the woman he had nurtured like a rare flower. 3 years of care, reduced to unrelated. The applause went on. Elijah rose slightly from his seat, clapping with just the right mix of humility and triumph. The spotlights bathed Cynthia in blush rose pink highlights, pastel peach beige stage lights reflecting off her gown like angelic armor. But to Aiden, standing in the cold strip of shadow behind the curtain, the glow was only a mask. Beyond it was the silver-gray glow of his phone screen waiting backstage, hundreds of unread messages blinking, people already sending condolences he hadn't yet read. He inhaled once, slow and steady, tasting the dust of stage velvet. Cameras clicked, the audience rose to its feet, and in the middle of it all, the man who built her empire stood still, erased by a single perfect line, watching his own creation slip out of his hands without even looking back. 3 years ago, the casting room smelled like stale coffee and nervous sweat. Aiden had been running auditions since 7 that morning, and the sun outside was already beginning to melt down into a muted pastel behind the blinds. He was halfway through a sigh when the door creaked open and in stepped Cynthia, hair tied too tightly, wearing an oversized cream coat with a chipped button collar and scuffed white flats. She wasn't stunning, not in the way others were, but she had a stare that didn't flinch, not even under his gaze. She stood there with a faint tension in her shoulders and a trembling script in her hands. The panel of producers glanced at their watches. "Whenever you're ready," one of them said flatly. Cynthia blinked, looked down once at her script, and began. Her voice cracked on the first line, but by the third, she had found a rhythm, unpolished but raw. She wasn't refined, she didn't know how to hit the lights just right or tilt her chin for the camera. But Aiden saw something others didn't. She felt the role, her timing was natural, her eyes held the ache of someone who had once hoped too much and paid for it. After she left, the room snickered. "She's not what we're looking for," one of the producers said. "Her face doesn't sell. Too real." But Aiden didn't laugh. He stared at the closed door and said, "Call her back." The next day, he gave her a minor role, no fanfare, no promises. But from that moment, Cynthia never left his frame. Over the next 2 months, she returned to every rehearsal early, stayed late, rehearsed silently in the corners while the leads bathed in attention. Aidan noticed she never made a scene. When one of the veteran actresses tossed her script at Cynthia, accusing her of upstaging, Cynthia apologized softly and picked it up without a word. But Aidan remembered. When rumors began to spread, whispers of Cynthia cozying up to him for favors, he shut them down with one look. When a scandal nearly broke her, when an old tabloid dredged up fabricated stories about her past clients, Aidan used every favor he was owed to wipe it clean. When sponsors pulled funding, he wrote checks. When casting agents refused to place her in A-list productions, he wrote roles around her. Cynthia bloomed under his gaze, her posture improved, her eyes stopped scanning the room for approval. She knew she had someone behind her, someone who would never let her fall. He taught her where the light lived on stage, when to pause, how to hold the weight of silence in a scene. Once, while adjusting her earpiece during a take, their fingers brushed. She had looked up, lips slightly parted. "What?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then shook her head with a smile that barely reached her eyes. "Not yet." It became a rhythm between them, words unsaid. "Not yet." After her first major lead role, the afterparty buzzed with praise. Cynthia wore a satin ivory dress that Aidan had handpicked from a stylist's rejected rack. Everyone wanted a photo. But when the night waned and they found themselves alone on a rooftop lit with string lights, she leaned over the railing and asked, "Did you think I'd make it this far?" He stood beside her, hands in his pockets. "No." She looked at him, shocked. "I thought you'd go further." Their silence hung like mist between them. She turned away, but her smile lingered. He never reached for her, and she never let him. Some said Aidan was cold, that he didn't smile much on set, but Cynthia knew better. She had seen him replace an actress mid-production because she mocked a junior intern. She had seen him argue with executives over final cuts, fighting to preserve performances they wanted to butcher. He wasn't cold, he was constant. Samantha arrived 2 years later, quiet, glasses fogging up on her first day as an extra. Aidan barely noticed her at first, buried in edits and rewrites, but Samantha noticed everything. She watched Cynthia with a quiet reverence, her clipboard always in hand, her expression unreadable. She memorized the lighting rigs. She took notes during table reads even when she wasn't in the scene. She stood in the wings long after her parts ended. Aidan only noticed her when Cynthia once flubbed a line, and Samantha, standing 10 feet away, mouthed the correct one under her breath. "You memorize everyone's lines?" Aidan asked her that evening. She blinked, startled. "Only to understand the pacing." He nodded, walked away. But he remembered her. Over time, he started assigning Samantha odd jobs, shadowing the dialogue coach, adjusting blocking, watching audition tapes. She never said no. One day he passed by the rehearsal room late at night and saw her alone, repeating the same 3 lines in the mirror, each time with a different inflection, her voice raw, her eyes full. She hadn't noticed he was watching. He didn't interrupt. Cynthia, by then, had grown. She stood on magazine covers, posed beside luxury cars, smiled for interviews with a Polish that no longer needed directing. She began skipping rehearsals. She argued with costume designers. She answered calls in the middle of table reads. But Aidan never called her out, not publicly. He remembered when she was someone who practiced until her feet blistered, when she bowed to every crew member after rap. He remembered everything. He still didn't say "I love you," not once, but every frame he ever shot of her held the truth plainly. He had given her the best lighting, the best angles, the best version of herself the world had ever seen. Like a gardener, he had given her warmth, space, and light. But the moment she grew tall enough to see over the garden wall, she started asking, why stay rooted at all? And now, standing in the same studio lot where he once fixed her mic himself, Cynthia walked by him with Elijah at her side, her laughter airy and rehearsed. Elijah didn't bow to the crew, he barely made eye contact, he posed like he was already framed in a magazine. Samantha watched from the shadows. She saw everything. She didn't smile, she simply turned the page in her script and continued reading. Aidan watched her for a moment longer, then turned away. The flower he'd tended now bloomed for someone else, but flowers forget, they grow only because of the soil that once held them still. The shift was subtle at first, like the quiet snapping of a thread you didn't know was holding everything together. Cynthia stopped sending rap texts. She arrived on set with Elijah more often than she arrived at all. Her calls to Aiden became spaced out, her replies brief, her tone clipped. When he reviewed footage with her, she stopped looking at the monitor. She looked at her phone instead. "It's just PR," she said one day, when he questioned her about a social post that showed her sitting beside Elijah at a private dinner, wine glasses full, and their heads close. "You know how marketing works. Let the fans eat it up." She said it so effortlessly, as if PR had replaced reality. In the photo, Elijah's hand hovered just behind her back, close enough to suggest, far enough to deny. The comments underneath the post read like a fanfic anthology. Power couple energy. Cynthia finally found her equal. She deserves someone who believes in her. She didn't deny a single one. That week, the studio's production account posted an update. "Our team is thrilled to bring you our next blockbuster. Details coming soon." Aiden's name was tagged, so was Cynthia, and so was Elijah. The photo accompanying the announcement was a candid, Cynthia leaning over Elijah's shoulder, both grinning, both staged in a perfect moment of coincidence. Aiden hadn't taken that photo, he hadn't authorized that post. He sat at his desk, back straight, coffee untouched. Outside the window, rain gathered softly against the glass, filtering the sun into gray. His fingers hovered over the trackpad, scrolling through Cynthia's feed. Each new post bent the truth a little more, until the illusion had shape, voice, and teeth. Elijah was being positioned as her new partner, not just romantically, but professionally. On red carpets, in interviews, in the public imagination. One video clip went viral, a backstage moment where Elijah casually adjusted the strap of Cynthia's dress, and she laughed, swatting his hand. "You're terrible," she'd said playfully. The headline read, "The chemistry is already unbeatable. New leads confirmed?" Cynthia never corrected it. In meetings, she began raising her voice more. "I know what sells," she said once, interrupting the costume designer. "You want authenticity, but audiences want fantasy. That's why they love me." When Aiden glanced at her, she added sweetly, "But of course, I trust your vision. I just think we can modernize it a little." She no longer rehearsed with the team, she rehearsed with Elijah in private. Samantha watched all of this without saying a word. She was often overlooked, assumed to be just another diligent assistant or supporting cast member. But Aiden had noticed how she studied every shift in Cynthia's expression, how she absorbed direction like water. During an open rehearsal, when Cynthia was running late again, Aiden asked for someone to stand in. Samantha stepped forward. The scene was quiet, a monologue about betrayal and sacrifice. Samantha held the script in trembling fingers, eyes fixed on the imaginary camera. But when she began to speak, her voice didn't tremble. She delivered each line like it had been carved into her bones. By the time she was done, the room was silent. Aiden didn't clap, he simply nodded. "Again," he said. They ran it 4 times, each time different, each time better. Later that day, he saw Samantha alone in the corridor, pacing silently with her earbuds in. Practicing, no one watching, no one clapping, but she practiced anyway. Meanwhile, Cynthia posted another picture, her and Elijah on the beach in Sanya, sunglasses on, laughter frozen in digital amber. The caption read, "Work hard, play harder." Aiden watched it spread online, liked, shared, reposted, dissected. The comments gushed. Fans screamed, hashtags bloomed. Ashtastan sin lija na power pair, ash next big thing. She had rewritten the narrative in full daylight, and he let her. Even when an intern whispered, "Is she really going to be the lead in your next project?" Aiden only smiled slightly and said, "We'll see." His silence was seen as weakness, proof of loss. Cynthia began arriving later, staying less. She brought Elijah on set, just to hang out, she said. He'd lean against the wall, sunglasses on indoors, arms folded like a king without a crown. When the press asked Aiden about the rumors of casting Cynthia and Elijah as leads in his next film, he only said, "Casting isn't finalized." They took that as confirmation. Cynthia posted again the next day, a shot of her in front of the script binder labeled, Autumn Silk. Aiden's project. The caption, "Big things ahead." She tagged him, and Elijah. She didn't ask for permission. She assumed she didn't need to. But she was wrong. Aiden said nothing, even as journalists began requesting official comments. He ignored the calls, ignored the hashtags. Let them build their own mountain. Let them climb it too, because when they fell, the crash would echo. Cynthia continued performing for the spotlight, laughing louder, dressing brighter, drawing lines in the sand with glitter and filters. When she smiled, it was for the camera. When she cried, it was into a champagne glass. At the same time, Samantha's performances deepened. Her expressions sharpened. She began drawing quiet attention from crew members, then from the assistant director, and then from casting scouts. But Samantha didn't boast, she didn't post, she didn't PR anything. She simply prepared. And Aiden? He watched. He watched as Cynthia began rehearsing lines in front of Elijah, then whispered in interviews that Aiden was incredibly talented but intense, sometimes inflexible with modern creatives. He watched as she held press events without informing him. He watched as Elijah claimed in an online article that he and Cynthia had natural on-screen chemistry and were hoping to carry a film together soon. He watched it all and said nothing. Cynthia took his silence as defeat. Elijah took it as permission, the industry took it as confirmation. But Samantha, she saw what no one else did. She saw that Aiden never stopped watching, and he never blinked. Aiden pressed the lock button on his phone screen once, twice, then held it down and swiped Cynthia's name off the list. Block contact, confirmed. He did the same on WeChat, Instagram, the director's group chat, even the emergency line only 3 people had access to. She was now none of them. Just white space, just a blinking cursor where her name used to be. He set the phone down and turned toward the sink. The water ran cold, the pressure sharp. He cupped it, splashed his face again and again until his skin burned from the contrast. His breath came slower only after the 4th rinse. The mirror fogged slightly, but his reflection remained. The dark under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the cut of someone trying not to feel anything at all. On the table beside the mirror was a stack of scripts. All his. None of hers. His thumb hovered over the first page. He didn't open it. Instead, he walked to the edge of the window, opened his phone again, and stared at the trending feed. Cynthia and Elijah were once again on a beach, this time in Capri. Her white dress was sheer and caught the sun just right. Elijah wore unbuttoned linen and a smirk. He held a grape up to her lips. She leaned forward, biting it from his fingers. The photo looked stolen. It was meant to. The comments were poison laced with perfume. This is real love. He makes her laugh like Aiden never did. From director's puppet to queen in her own right. He turned the phone face down. Silence pooled around him, thick and electric. It wasn't the betrayal that stung, it was the ease of it. How quickly Cynthia had learned to walk in heels he bought for her just to turn and stomp over his name. How she used the stage he built to give someone else the credit. He hadn't loved her blindly, he had loved her carefully, the way you protect a young flame in the wind, cupping it until it learns to burn on its own. She had mistaken his hands for chains. A soft knock came at the office door. He didn't speak. Samantha stepped in quietly, hugging a folder to her chest. She didn't ask questions, didn't look at his phone, didn't mention Cynthia. She walked past the storm without getting wet, just as she always did. I formatted the notes from the location scout, she said simply, placing them on the table. Her hair was tied in a low knot, and there were lines of exhaustion under her eyes, the honest kind, not the curated kind Cynthia wore for aesthetic sympathy. Her eyes flicked to the flipped-over phone, but made no comment. She just added, "Let me know if you want me to check the audio logs later." "Thanks," Aiden said. It came out hoarse. Samantha didn't push, she gave a small nod and turned to leave. But just before she reached the door, she paused and looked back. "You're still the reason people line up to audition. That hasn't changed." Then she left. He didn't say anything. He couldn't, but he breathed a little deeper after the door clicked shut. Outside the studio, gossip spun louder. "Heard Elijah's basically taken over Aiden's project. Isn't Cynthia going to be his lead again? I mean, she's got the crowd, he's got the money, Aiden's, what, still editing trailers?" They weren't whispers anymore. Aiden didn't argue. He simply called in his assistant and requested the list of fresh auditionees. "Are we still going through with it?" the assistant asked, puzzled. "I thought Cynthia was the..." Aiden raised a brow. That was enough. The assistant cleared their throat and left. That night, the studio lights flickered as the cleaners passed through the main hallway. Aidan remained seated at the long editing bay. The footage of Cynthia's last shoot played in front of him. She wore tears like jewelry in the final scene, her voice cracked in just the right spot. He fast-forwarded through it. Paused on a frame of her smirking backstage. Then shut the monitor off. He reopened his laptop and retitled his next script, Southbound Light. The lead female role had a new name and a note beside it, to be cast. He didn't write Cynthia's name anywhere in the script, not even once. In the following weeks, Samantha became a constant, rehearsing lines in a quiet corner, helping the costume designer when short-staffed, pouring coffee for people who forgot her name. But Aidan noticed every detail. She memorized floor maps. She corrected lighting placement subtly. She even fixed a continuity error in the call sheet without waiting for praise. She never asked if she was going to audition, she just kept getting better. Meanwhile, Elijah and Cynthia continued their public performance. Every photo, every live stream, every forced laugh. Elijah called her his light, Cynthia called him her warmth. The fans drank it like wine. But the buzz began to tilt. Someone posted, "They look better in photos than in scenes. Are they even cast yet?" Another comment followed, "Cynthia keeps saying she's the lead in Aidan's new film, but why are auditions still happening?" The air thickened with contradiction. Still, Aidan said nothing. He reviewed each audition clip personally. He watched hours of footage, rarely blinking. He nodded at a few, wrote down names, crossed most of them out. Until one evening, Samantha stepped in, not because she was invited, but because someone dropped out last minute AA. And Aidan glanced across the room. "You," he said simply. "You know the scene?" She nodded once. On set, she didn't tremble, she didn't rush. Her voice came out steady, not loud, but every word rang with intent. The silence afterward was total. One of the producers whispered, "She's raw, but real." Aidan looked straight at Samantha and said, "Again." This time, her voice cracked on a line that wasn't supposed to, but it worked. It felt like it was supposed to. That night, he didn't post anything, he didn't announce a cast, but he made his decision, and it wasn't Cynthia. In the hallway, Samantha stood with her script folded against her chest. She didn't ask how she did, she didn't wait for praise. But as Aidan passed her, he said, "Call sheet comes out tomorrow, you'll want to keep your schedule clear." Then he walked off. Samantha blinked once, then nodded. And somewhere across the city, Cynthia scrolled through her phone, searching for an answer that hadn't come. Cynthia went live on a Wednesday night, the frame dipped in golden filter haze, her hair loose in familiar waves, eyes just wet enough to glisten. Her voice quivered, just slightly, as she held the phone closer and whispered to her followers. "I didn't want to talk about this," she said, breath-catching. "I really didn't. But people keep assuming things, that I betrayed him, that I used him, but I left because I was suffocating. Aidan was controlling, possessive. I wasn't allowed to grow." Tens of thousands of people flooded the chat in seconds, heart emojis, shocked reactions, comments scrolled fast beneath her. "He always seemed too intense. Queen, speak your truth, you made him famous, not the other way around. Elijah treats her like royalty. Aidan just treated her like property. I hope he heals," she continued, dabbing her eyes delicately with a tissue that didn't smear her makeup. "And I hope people can stop painting me as the villain, just because I wanted to breathe." The stream ended with a heavy sigh and a long, vulnerable pause. The internet erupted. Free. Cynthia trended within the hour. Fans reposted old clips of Aidan being cold on set, of Cynthia looking distant during interviews. Elijah fans spun a new narrative. The washed-up director obsessed with his ex-star. His silence was twisted into guilt, his control into abuse. And Aidan? He said nothing, not to the press, not to the producers. He waited. Exactly 48 hours later, the production page for Southbound Light posted a single image. Samantha, standing on a soundstage, simple lighting. No filters. Wearing a navy rehearsal hoodie, hair tied up, script in hand, no glamour, just readiness. The caption was 4 words, "Meet our new lead." Aidan tagged her, no other name appeared. Within minutes, everyone was talking. Who was Samantha? Why hadn't Cynthia been cast? Wasn't Elijah supposed to rise? Oh, lead. Confusion bred curiosity. And then Samantha logged on. She didn't go live. She didn't cry. She posted 18 updates in a row, each calm, surgical. The first read, "Hello Miss Cynthia, didn't you say Aiden was unrelated, then why mention him while crying for views?" The next, "Director Aiden offered you respect, you returned it with exposure." A behind-the-scenes clip followed, Cynthia rolling her eyes at the script, muttering, "He's overdoing it, it's not that deep." Post after post stacked receipts, screenshots of Cynthia claiming she was cast in Southbound Light, despite Aiden never announcing it. Clips of her skipping rehearsals. A voice memo where she laughed, "Samantha, she's background noise, no presence." Samantha captioned it, "Background noise tends to get louder when everyone else is lying." The final post was a split-screen comparison. Left, Cynthia rehearsing the emotional death scene from her last film, visibly stiff, the tears clearly forced. Right, Samantha, in rehearsal, voice cracking as she delivered a single line. "I forgive you." Her tear never fell, but her silence said everything. The internet went still. Then it exploded. Who is this girl? She's destroying Cynthia with proof. She didn't cry on stream, she proved her point. Cynthia and Elijah tried to spin harder. Elijah posted a smug photo of the two of them in a studio lounge. Not everyone has to audition when you've already made it. Aiden reposted it without comment, just added a dot, and then, nothing. But the audience didn't forget. A post began trending from an anonymous account. Rumor, Elijah isn't who he says he is. That Air story, paper thin. Within hours, Reddit threads bloomed. Comments speculated about forged contracts, overblown claims, fabricated connections to a famous production group. A grainy photo surfaced showing Elijah being rejected by the assistant to the actual CEO of that studio, a man who didn't even seem to recognize him. People began questioning everything. Cynthia posted again, trying to rally. A photo of her script binder with a caption, "Real talent doesn't need to prove itself." But it only added fuel. Samantha replied, "That's convenient, especially when you didn't earn the role." And then she posted a final clip, Cynthia arguing with the sound crew over reverb, her voice shrill, her posture impatient. "I don't care how it sounds, fix it in post, that's your job, isn't it?" The damage was done. Influencers picked sides, commentators dissected the clips, threads broke down Samantha's poise, her strategic timing, her refusal to beg for support. And through all of it, Aiden remained quiet. Producers reached out. "Should we issue a statement, clarify the casting decision?" Aiden only sipped his coffee and shook his head. "Let them talk." "Won't this hurt Cynthia's brand?" someone asked. He looked at them evenly. "Did I say her name?" The rumor mill turned to wildfire. News outlets now questioned if Elijah had ever had real connections. If Cynthia was complicit in spreading the lie, if their chemistry was built on desperation, not talent. Cynthia, for the first time in days, didn't post, but her fans did, and they were angry, confused, divided. Some turned on her, others begged for silence, the noise became too loud to control. Meanwhile, Samantha's following grew quietly. Fan edits of her rehearsal clips circulated, people praised her restraint, her integrity. She didn't comment on Cynthia beyond what was necessary, but the industry saw. Casting directors reached out, agencies emailed, and Aiden smiled. In the middle of the noise, a journalist cornered him outside the studio lot. "Director Aiden, do you have any comment about Elijah's claims that he's the heir to?" Aiden paused, offered a faint smirk. "I'd rather speak when it matters." He stepped into the car, rolled up the window, and pulled out a folder labeled Gala RSVP. The invitation inside was printed in elegant gold leaf. Wang Group 60th Anniversary Gala. He wasn't alone. Samantha walked beside him, dressed in a simple but elegant off-shoulder black gown that contrasted with her calm expression. She didn't fidget, she didn't smile too wide, her eyes scanned the room with steady composure, as though she belonged there, because she did. Cynthia was already waiting inside, standing near the base of the central staircase, her ivory gown dazzling under the warm lighting. Elijah hovered close to her, his tailored cream suit creased just right, his expression one of bored confidence. As Aiden and Samantha stepped in, Cynthia's smile froze, Her gaze locked on Samantha first, registering her presence, her closeness, then shifted to Aiden, as if trying to gauge how far he had truly moved on. Elijah looked over his shoulder with a smug grin. "I'm surprised you came, Aiden," he said, lifting his glass in mock toast. "Didn't think this was your kind of party anymore." Aiden said nothing. Samantha didn't break stride. She placed her hand lightly on Aiden's arm and leaned in slightly. "Should we say hello to the hosts first?" she asked, just loud enough for Cynthia to hear. Elijah's jaw tightened. Cynthia's lashes fluttered, her tone syrup sweet. "Aiden? You brought her?" Aiden's eyes didn't leave hers. "Of course, it's a celebration, isn't it?" She took a step forward, placing one manicured hand on his wrist. "Can we talk, just the two of us?" Before he could respond, Samantha gently peeled Cynthia's hand away and stepped between them with perfect calm. Her voice was polite but cold. "Senior, please don't flirt with my boyfriend in public. It's a little awkward." Cynthia blinked, stunned into silence. The surrounding guests began to murmur, some gasping audibly. Aiden glanced at Samantha, amused. Her grip on his wrist didn't tighten, but it didn't loosen either. Cynthia's expression faltered, just for a breath, but she recovered, with practiced ease, retreating a step and adjusting her earring. "You've become bold," she muttered. "Just honest," Samantha replied without missing a beat. The gala swelled with tension. At exactly 8:30, the lights dimmed, a spotlight hit the center of the stage, the MC stepped forward, voice smooth. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the 60th anniversary of the Wang Group. Tonight, President Harold Wang himself has a special announcement." From the side entrance, a broad-shouldered man in a deep navy tuxedo walked onto the stage. His presence was commanding even before he spoke. President Wang took the mic with a slight smile, his voice clear and strong. "Tonight," he began, "I want to address something the media has been speculating about for months: the identity of my son." The room fell into stunned quiet. Cynthia straightened instantly, elbowing Elijah subtly. He puffed up with visible pride. President Wang continued. "There have been rumors, misunderstandings, false claims. So tonight, I want to make it very clear. I have one son, one heir." The pause dragged intentionally. "My son is Aiden." The spotlight swiveled instantly, onto Aiden. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elijah's face turned a shade paler. Cynthia's hand dropped from her champagne flute, the glass barely missing the floor as she gripped Elijah's arm in disbelief. President Wang continued as murmurs spread. "There have been unfortunate misrepresentations recently," he said, lifting a hand. "Let's clarify." A screen lowered behind him and a video began to play. The first clip showed Elijah being escorted off the Wang Group premises 2 years prior, demanding to speak to his father. Security guards firmly pushed him out while he screamed, "You'll regret this." The next clip showed a recorded conversation, Elijah's mother in a back hallway of the gala venue, fronting a former Wang executive, crying, "You said he was my son's father. I deserve everything she got." The third clip was a paternity test, bold, simple, result, not a match. Medical documents followed, a diagnosis, delusional disorder, persistent belief in false paternity. The crowd didn't gasp this time, they just stared. The lights came back up, President Wang nodded solemnly. "This ends the speculation. I've supported treatment for many years, but let's not confuse fantasy with truth. Aiden is my only son." All eyes turned, Elijah's hands trembled, Cynthia backed away half a step. Her lips parted but no words came out. Elijah stammered, This was never about money." "No?" Aiden's voice cut through like a blade dipped in velvet. He stepped forward, pulling Samantha beside him, never breaking eye contact with either of them. "You used my name, you used my film, you used the woman I built from nothing as a prop for your fairy tale." Cynthia tried to recover. "I didn't know, he told me." "Aiden, wait." She reached for his hand. Aiden pulled it back like it burned. "You didn't betray me," he said, his voice even. "You betrayed what I built in you." She froze. "You could have told the truth. You could have stepped aside with dignity. You could have remembered the hand that held the roots of your rise." He gestured toward Samantha. "But you chose to mock the very soil that nourished you. And she," he looked at Samantha, "chose to earn it." Samantha met his eyes without blinking. Behind them, Elijah slumped slightly, retreating from the spotlight like a shadow trying to crawl back under a rock. Cynthia stood alone in the heat of the lights. Aiden stepped away. Samantha's hand slid into his as they turned and descended the stairs. They didn't look back. Someone in the crowd whispered, "That was cold." Someone else replied, "That was earned." As they reached the ballroom floor again, Samantha leaned in, voice barely audible. "Are you okay?" Aiden exhaled slowly. "I am now." Behind them, Cynthia stared at the spot where he had stood just seconds ago. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, her foundation cracked slightly at the corner of her mouth. She looked around, no one met her eyes. Elijah had disappeared. She turned back to the stage where President Wang was already giving closing remarks, eyes scanning the audience for someone, anyone, who might still be on her side. But there were none. Samantha and Aiden slipped out through the side entrance. The city buzzed just beyond the marble pillars, a streetlight flickered. Under its glow, Samantha laced her fingers with his. "You meant what you said, right?" she asked. "About me earning it." Aiden looked at her. "I meant all of it." Then they walked down the steps into the night, leaving the noise behind. The first leaked video came 3 days after the gala. It wasn't dramatic, no scandalous kiss or hidden affair, just raw behind-the-scenes footage from Cynthia's last drama, a take ruined. She slammed the script against the director's chair, shouting, "How many times do I have to explain? Just cut around it." Then another clip surfaced. She flubbed a line, again, and again. A voice off-screen whispered, "That's 10 takes." Cynthia tossed the prop at the assistant director, muttering, "If you can't fix it in post, what are you even getting paid for?" The internet moved quickly. In a matter of hours, old set footage was spliced together. Side-by-side shots revealed body doubles performing difficult scenes. A slow zoom on one frame caught a clear mistake, a stand-in's face left unedited, her expression, her tone, her pride, all dismantled by a single watermark in the corner that read, "Uncut." Her PR team scrambled, issuing statements about taken-out-of-context edits and a smear campaign by jealous competitors. But it was too late. Once the pedestal cracked, people pulled receipts, deleted tweets, interview clips where she subtly insulted co-stars. Backstage gossip, every thank you she had once failed to give, became a line item in the case against her. Her fanbase split, some still loyal but many fleeing quietly. Endorsement deals fell through. A designer brand dropped her after a petition hit 70,000 signatures. A variety show replaced her with a rising K-drama actress overnight. And everywhere Cynthia turned, she saw her. Samantha. She didn't explode onto the scene. She rose like dawn, quiet, slow, unstoppable. An interview clip of Samantha went viral. Her sitting on a plastic chair in a modest beige sweater, hair tied back, no makeup, softly answering questions. "I'm just grateful," she said. "I still feel like a background extra half the time, but I'll keep work it. Nung hard." The clip had 20 million views in a day. Fan pages erupted, edits rolled out daily, Samantha in her breakout role in Southbound Light, her raw behind-the-scenes footage, her natural crying scene dubbed, "The Tear That Never Fell But Broke Everyone Anyway." Producers circled, scripts were rewritten with her in mind. She didn't post selfies, she posted rehearsal schedules, and Aiden, he remained silent. Until 1 month later, at the press conference for Southbound Light's premiere, a journalist asked a question everyone had danced around. "Director Aiden, what would you say to people who still link you to your previous actress, Cynthia?" The flashbulbs paused, even the room's breath seemed to hold. Aiden adjusted his mic. "I'd prefer if people didn't link unrelated individuals to me," he said. His tone was even. "Thank you." That was all. The statement spread like wildfire. Clipped, shared, printed on headlines with surgical precision. "Don't link unrelated individuals to me. Thank you." It was the mirror of Cynthia's betrayal. Repurposed. Reclaimed. Somewhere across town, Cynthia watched the clip on her tablet in a darkened studio apartment. The shades were drawn. The power had flickered twice that morning. Her phone buzzed endlessly, mostly spam, and reminders of unpaid PR invoices. Her current agency had gone silent. Her contract renewal sat unsigned. Every producer she reached out to responded with polite rejection or didn't respond at all. The roles dried up. The invitations stopped. The calls that once came hourly were now ghosts. She stepped outside the following week, for the first time in days. Her face bare, eyes red, she walked toward the venue where Southbound Light was hosting its first major awards ceremony screening. Security stood tall in black coats. The press crowded the main walkway. The red carpet shimmered like a line of fire between the people and their expectations. Cynthia waited near the side entrance. Her heels were worn down, the hem of her coat dragged slightly on the ground. She carried no clutch, no phone, no smile. Then the black car pulled up. Samantha stepped out first, wearing a flowing rose-pink gown that shimmered under the golden lighting. Her hair was tied up in a loose wave, her smile calm, camera flashes wrapping around her like ribbons of approval. Then came Aiden. Sharp as ever, charcoal gray suit, dark eyes unreadable, jaw tight, but calm. He extended his arm. Samantha took it naturally. They stepped onto the red carpet together. And then, Cynthia. She moved forward from the shadows, dropping to her knees on the stone walkway just beyond the press barricade. Aiden? Her voice cracked. I'm nothing without you. The crowd turned. Cameras froze. Samantha paused mid-step. Aiden looked over his shoulder. Cynthia's eyes were wild, rimmed red, the makeup smudged beneath them now fully tears. Her fingers dug into the concrete. Please, she whispered, just look at me, you know I was wrong. Aiden turned to face her fully. He said nothing, just walked toward the flower bed lining the red carpet, paused, and spit into the soil. The act was quiet, deliberate, heavy. Then he turned back and held out his arm to Samantha. She took it again without hesitation. They walked on. Behind them, Cynthia stayed frozen, ignored by the crowd. Her sobs went unheard beneath the applause for Southbound Light beginning to rise. As for Elijah, he was nowhere to be found. There were rumors, of course. One claimed he fled overseas after a forged contract scandal. Another suggested he was blacklisted under another name. Some said he was hospitalized, others said arrested. But no one could confirm anything. He disappeared like a rumor that had overstayed its welcome, and no one missed him. The final award of the night was announced under golden lights. Samantha was named Best New Actress. The applause shook the floor. When she walked up to accept, her voice was steady. I was told to just keep showing up, so I did. I'm grateful to the person who believed in me when I had nothing to offer. She looked down at Aiden in the front row. Their eyes met. After the ceremony, as the crowd filtered into afterparties and press junkets, Aiden and Samantha walked through the side exit. The moonlight painted the street in soft white. Traffic murmured in the distance. Samantha wrapped both her arms around Aiden's as they walked toward the car waiting at the curb. She leaned in close and whispered, soft enough that only he could hear. I told you I wouldn't let you lose. Aiden glanced sideways at her. The golden light from the marquee washed over them both. And as they walked away, past the ruins, past the whispers, past the girl left on her knees behind them, Aiden didn't look back. The weed had been left behind, and beside him now bloomed the flower he hadn't expected, but the one he had chosen. Forever.